I think I might have just found the future of where outlets, or more properly called receptacles, are going in the US and Canadian markets. Now this is a Leviton Decora Edge series. It's the first time I saw it. I ordered a few online to give them a try. Now what you should see right away is we do not have screw terminals, right? We have these little levers off to the side. So you can take 14 or 12 gauge, insert that strip to 9/16 of an inch, close the lever, and now you have a secure connection with no exposed terminals on your hot or neutral side, and also your ground is going to be the same type of connection. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before, you know I'm a big fan of WAGO lever nuts that have a similar lever action to secure wires into your connections, which have pretty much replaced any use of wire nuts when I'm doing electrical work. So the question is, are these any good? I'm going to go ahead and do a simple install that will demonstrate some of these cool features and really new features I haven't seen demonstrated by any other brands or types of outlets. Then we'll go ahead and break out the Dremel tool and we'll actually open this guy up to look closer at the actual internals, and are they closer to like a cheap residential grade outlet, or are they in more of the commercial grade class, which I have a bunch of different examples that we can compare and contrast against. And then we'll end on my take. Is this something I'm going to be using at some of my projects? What's the price point? And then what other options are out there with a similar design? So let's go ahead and jump into the install. So we'll confirm we don't have any power using our outlet tester. With no LEDs on, we know the power's off. Removing the 2 mounting screws for the cover plate, now we'll move on to the 2 mounting screws going through the yoke of the outlet that holds it to the junction box. Backing those out with the Milwaukee ECX screwdriver, and each step's gonna be a little different. Here we have 2 sets of Romex. That's gonna be 2 white neutral wires, 2 black hot wires, and then 1 bare ground. And I'll just cut those off because I have plenty of wire with my micro side cutters from Knipex. Once we have those cut off, now I'm just using the gauge here, the strip gauge, which is going to show you exactly 9/16 of an inch. That's how much copper you need to strip off of each of your conductors. So we'll power through the stripping here, just stripping the 2 hots, the 2 neutrals, and then the bare ground is good to go. Now here's where the Decora Edge really shines, right? So we'll start off with our ground by opening up that lever, pressing the bare ground in, and then closing lever. That's all there is to it. Then we'll move on to the hot side. I'm not going to pigtail these and then only run 1 hot and 1 neutral. I'm actually going to bring both sets in. So both hots will come in. I'll straighten out that piece of copper so it easily goes into place and gets a secure hold. Don't forget to do pulse tests along the way to make sure you have everything lined up and that the conductor is deep enough within the outlet. So I'll place that neutral in, close the tab or close the lever, and then do our last one. And that is really it. That is how easy it is to wire up these Leviton Decora Edge series. Now you want to check your wall plate. Some of the wall plates like this one, which is a standard, you need to break off these tabs because those tabs are in place to make sure you can grab drywall even when you have a little bit of an overcut of drywall. So they are handy, but on a standard wall plate, they need to be broken off to make sure everything lines up and you have the clearance between the outlet and the wall plate so the wall plate sits flush to the wall. So we'll go ahead and tighten up our mounting screws here. Kind of standard operation, making sure it pulls tight to the wall and it's flush and it's not crooked within there. Then we'll align up our wall plate, place our 2 screws back in, and we'll either end horizontal or vertical. That's always best practice. Don't worry, I'll jump back and get that bottom one to make sure it's vertical. Then once we're done, we'll test everything out, confirming we have power with the 2 amber LEDs. Not gonna lie, that was a pretty darn easy install. Arguably probably the easiest outlet I've ever installed, and I felt good about those connections. When you close down that lever, it gives you a nice tight hold, and that is much better than a feature that's been out on many residential grades for over a decade now, and that is backstabbing, where you can take a 14 gauge wire, insert that right into the back. That is a one and done feature I am not a fan of, and we'll talk about that while I actually open this up and we look internally and compare and contrast those features, why I think this one's much better than a classic backstamping feature on a residential grade outlet. here are the internals and a few comparisons. A lot to look at, but I'll walk you through it. So this is a standard Leviton residential grade, super cheap, non-tamper resistant. I mean, these were like 50 cents for years. They're more like 75 cents now. Here is the Decora Edge that we just took apart and cut out the housing. And then here is kind of your first level of commercial grade or spec grade from Leviton, which is really the one I usually prefer. So just to give you a recap, or for the first time show you this speed wiring and how that works. So a 14 gauge wire can fit in the speed wiring or backstabbing feature. That is then pressed against one plate here internally, and then that's what makes positive contact with your hot and neutral side. That is how speed wiring works. That is a one and done feature. So if you use this release mechanism here, you press in and you deflect this plate, that would be the one time you can use that feature, and you should not use that again. We'll compare how the Decora Edge holds that in. I think it is a little better design, but one thing I want to note is on our overall terminals here, we have this U design. We have that same U design. It looks like it's been redesigned a little bit more, but I do not love that design. I've always liked where we have two separate pieces of metal coming together, creating positive friction on the prongs that would come into the hot and neutral side. This is a commercial grade. I prefer that type of design. I think it holds up for longer, and then you don't have outlets that start to get loose over time. This one's going to be much more robust to plugging and unplugging and still giving you a nice tight hold. This one might have some issues, but let's look at how it actually holds the wire in. So once we removed, this is really part of the housing for the tamper resistant. This actually has a little channel there that would fit right down in there, and then that's actually what the wire is going up and through. And what's going on is there's that silver spring right here. When you depress the lever, that is going to push the spring in, and I can give you a closer look from one I removed. All right, so if we go ahead and let's depress the spring, you can see it opens up a little door on this side. That's where the wire would actually go through. And then once you let go of the spring, it clamps down on that wire and holds it into place. So that is what's going on internally. You can see the 12 gauge copper coming up and through there, and that is how it's actually holding it in. So it's making contact here with our terminal. And I like that because it's more of a spring mechanism. I do not love this kind of plate, which does give you some spring characteristics, but once it's deflected, it's not going to bounce back. This, once it's deflected, it still has its spring characteristics and will bounce back. So pretty interesting design. I would say overall, you're a little bit closer to a residential grade internals than the commercial grade, but I definitely like the wire hold mechanism much more than speed wiring. And the last feature I'll highlight is you saw these large plastic bases, right, that are attached to the yokes. So what are those used for? One, they can catch drywall a little bit more, so it gives you a little bit more forgiveness in the cut of drywall around your junction box, where the outlet will align itself and actually hit the wall surface, so you'll have a nice flush mount. And then two, they have these little tabs here that fit together, and that makes it in a multi-gang box so it fits perfectly, and then your wall plate is perfectly aligned so you can easily get those mounted and don't have to fight with the different Decora outlets or Decora light switches. Now when it comes to pricing, we're looking at about a $1 premium, so about $3.50 per outlet for your Decora Edge compared to the same Decora series tamper resistant 15 amp residential grade, which is about $2.50. So that's where we come in on pricing. Now the only other options that I saw out there is they actually have 3-way Decora light switches and also single pole light switches. So you have your 15 amp outlet, single pole light switches, and the 3-way light switches. Those are the only components I see out there, and correct me if I'm wrong if you guys see something else down in the comments. Also in the comments, I just want to hear what you guys think. If nothing else, just say good idea or say bad idea, depending on what your feeling are for these new Decora Edge outlets and light switches. And then down in the description right below the video, you'll see a link for our Amazon store, which has all of the DIY friendly tools that we recommend, kind of bucketed across electrical and plumbing and general tools, so you can easily find what you're looking for. And also I'll put a link to the actual Decora Edge so you can look at them yourself and see if they're right for your project. Now, speaking of projects, check out this video right here. I'll walk you through how to move an outlet in your home. You do not have to go down in a basement or even have a basement, and you do not have to go up into attic. We'll do that all within the room, and we will not have to do any drywall repair or painting. So it's a great project to get your home laid out the way you want it without a ton of extra work. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.